So today we're launching ourselves into a deep dive on a topic that is, well, it's universally dreaded, it's perpetually postponed, and yet it's perhaps the most critical proof of care we can offer our families: estate planning. Our source material for this deep dive kicks off with a title so blunt, so provocative, you almost have to read it twice just to process the audacity.
Oh, another one.
It just reads, estate planning is only for people who care about their loved ones.
Mm.
I have to admit, when I first saw that, I kind of chuckled, but then I felt this little pang of guilt. It's designed to stop you in your tracks, isn't it? It absolutely is. I mean, most of the literature out there, it tries to gently persuade you with language about, preserving wealth or minimizing taxes. And that approach, frankly, it just fails. We procrastinate because talking about mortality is uncomfortable. So what the writer's doing here is using a little bit of emotional jujitsu. They're reframing the action not as something hard you do for yourself, but as this essential burden you proactively remove from others. It's essentially saying, if you're delaying this, you are choosing to burden the people you love most. It just forces a complete psychological shift.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Our mission today is to distill the absolute foundational steps for estate planning, specifically focusing on how preparation simplifies life for those left behind. We're answering one core question for you. What foundational steps safeguard our intentions, regardless of our current wealth or our age? Because this isn't just about money, it's about clarity. And that clarity is the whole key. We have to internalize this fact that the plan is not for the person creating it. It is purely for the survivors. I mean, once you're gone, your concerns are over. The burden of administration, it falls entirely on your family.
And the absence of that preparation doesn't just mean a few extra forms. It means layering bureaucratic, financial, and legal chaos right on top of grief. When you put it that way, the idea of procrastinating becomes almost unthinkable.
It becomes a profound inconvenience at best and a catastrophe at worst. I mean, without a plan, your loved ones have to navigate sorting through every account, every title, every single thing you owned. And here's the really tough part. They have to attend court proceedings, these probate hearings, where incredibly personal private financial matters are just aired in public. The whole process drags on, often for a year or more, and they're contending with banks, realtors, attorneys, courts, all while trying to grieve. The plan is a shield against all that.
And it's not just the logistical burden. The source material highlights these specific, really devastating pitfalls of inadequate planning. Assets might miss their intended beneficiary entirely just because a title was wrong. And cherished values, sentimental items you wanted specific people to have, they just remain unhonored. And what's most painful, I think, is the risk of igniting family conflicts. When there is no clear directive, these disputes over who gets what can permanently damage relationships. The cost isn't just financial, it's familial.
We also have to update our understanding of assets. The older generation, they often focused only on, property and retirement. Today, we have massive exposure through digital assets, everything from online investment accounts and PayPal balances to critical content like photos, intellectual property, and of course, cryptocurrencies.
Oh, that's a huge one.
Huge.
Yeah.
If you hold crypto keys and those aren't recorded or designated properly, that asset is likely gone forever.
That brings up the issue of taxes, which always seems to dominate these conversations, but it often misses the point for most people.
Exactly. Well, planning to avoid unnecessary taxes is important. For most listeners, the logistical complexity is a far bigger concern than the tax bill. The sources point out that the 2026 federal estate tax exemption is permanently set at $15 million per person, and it's indexed for inflation. So most estates just won't owe federal tax. But,
Yeah.
and this is a critical piece that often gets missed, state-level taxation. Several states still have their own estate or inheritance taxes with much lower thresholds. So while federal taxes might not be an issue for you, the primary value of planning is still reducing state-level logistics and, most importantly, providing clarity and speed.
Okay, that really clarifies the why and the stakes involved.
Yeah.
So let's shift to the foundational how. Let's cover the three most crucial steps everyone should take, regardless of whether they ever draft a really complex trust. These are the tools that are designed to bypass probate court entirely for certain assets.
Right. The easiest, simplest, and most powerful step is reviewing and implementing beneficiary designations. This is just naming specific people on your financial accounts. Your retirement accounts, life insurance, investment accounts, annuities.
And what's fascinating here is that these designations, they essentially operate outside the will, correct? They're like a contract between you and the bank.
Precisely. They enable a direct transfer of the asset upon your death. The asset passes by operation of that contract, skipping probate court entirely. This is so essential for retirement funds, especially because of how they're treated tax-wise.
And the critical warning here is maintenance. I love the line from the source material. Your current spouse may not appreciate discovering your former spouse listed as beneficiary.
Yes. It's an inconvenient truth, but legally, that former spouse, if they're still named, they get the money. And beyond just the initial naming, you really need to think about contingent beneficiaries. Life happens, If your primary beneficiary passes before you do and you haven't named a contingent, that asset is suddenly thrown right back into the probate pile. It's a vital backup.
Okay, number 2. The second mechanism is joint ownership. Specifically, titling assets like real estate or bank accounts as joint tenants with rights of survivorship or JTWROS.
Yes. This is a mechanism where, upon the death of one owner, the asset just automatically passes to the co-owner.
Yeah.
Again, zero court involvement required. A very clean, straightforward way to transfer title on a house between spouses, for example.
But this is where the nuance of a deep dive really matters, because not all joint ownership is created equal, right? Like, if you title property as tenancy in common, that doesn't bypass probate.
That's a crucial distinction. If you title an asset as tenants in common, or TEC, each person owns a defined share. If one owner dies, their share does not automatically go to the other owner.
It goes where?
It goes into the deceased owner's estate and has to be handled by their will, so it goes through probate. If you want that automatic transfer, you have to use the specific legal language of JTWROS. Failing to understand that is a huge pitfall.
That level of detail is exactly what people need to hear. Okay, so finally, we have to introduce trusts as the ultimate foundational tool for overall control and probate avoidance.
A properly structured trust is essentially a separate legal entity, like a basket, if you will, that holds all your assets. And since the assets are no longer legally owned by you as an individual, when you die, the basket doesn't need the court's permission to open. It continues to be managed under the terms you already set up. It could be a revocable trust, which is flexible, or an irrevocable one for more advanced planning. But the main benefit is always control and speed of transfer.
That transition brings us right to the specific documents needed to formalize all of this. Let's look at the toolkit you need for comprehensive planning.
Okay, we'll start with the trust itself. The trust document details who the trustee is, the manager, and exactly how and when assets get distributed. You, the person creating it, you act as the trustee during your lifetime.
And then you name a successor trustee. I have to imagine choosing that person is almost as important as setting up the trust in the first place.
It's vital. The successor trustee is the person who steps in when you can't. They have to be trustworthy, organized, capable of managing financial and legal affairs. If you want assets held for minor children or distributed over time, say at ages 25, 30, and 35, that successor is responsible for making sure that happens.
This brings us to what I think is the biggest surprise, the real aha moment that people miss. You can spend thousands of dollars drafting the perfect trust, but if you stop there, it's completely useless. We're talking about the unfunded trust.
Oh, this is the administrative nightmare we try so hard to avoid. You sign the paper, the attorney hands you this nice binder, and you feel like you're done. But the trust document is just the instruction manual. You still have to do the work of actually transferring ownership. If you fail to retitle your house, your brokerage account, your savings into the name of the trust, although those assets are still legally owned by you personally, they're outside the trust's protection.
So they might still have to go through probate.
Exactly. An unfunded trust is an empty vehicle. It delivers none of the benefits you paid for.
So step 1, create the instructions. Step 2, physically move the property into the basket. Got it. Now, beyond the trust, we need protection while you're alive but may be incapacitated. The 3 core contingency documents.
These are focused on managing disaster while you are still here. First, the living will. This is your directive to doctors specifying your healthcare preferences if you can't communicate. It saves your family from making these agonizing decisions without guidance. Second is the power of attorney, the POA. This appoints a trusted person, your agent, to manage your financial matters if you become incapacitated. And it's crucial to understand that POAs are highly specific. You need one for finances and often a separate one for healthcare, sometimes called a healthcare proxy.
I can see where having those in place avoids massive court battles. Otherwise, a family member has to petition a judge for guardianship just to pay your electric bill.
Precisely. Guardianship hearings are exactly what you want to avoid. They're expensive, intrusive, and time-consuming. And finally, the third document is the last will and testament. Now, if you have a fully funded trust, the will acts as a pour-over document. It just makes sure any stray assets you forgot to transfer automatically pour into the trust. If you don't have a trust, the will outlines all your final wishes, and while it requires probate, at least it provides clear direction.
And our documents have to reflect the modern world. Let's talk about that crucial area where most older plans fail: digital assets. This goes way beyond just leaving a password list.
It really does. It requires proactive planning because of privacy laws and terms of service. You need a comprehensive inventory: online accounts, social media, digital content, and certainly any cryptocurrency wallets or exchange accounts. And you have to designate a digital executor in your planning documents, someone with explicit authority to access and manage these accounts. If you don't, your family may not even be able to close down your social media profile, let alone access valuable assets like Bitcoin.
The technical challenge with crypto is huge, too. If you only provide the name of the exchange, but not the private keys to a self-custodial wallet, those assets are essentially stranded.
Absolutely. The level of detail needed for digital assets is orders of magnitude higher than for a bank account. And to sort of smooth all this over, we introduce the human element, the letter of intent. This isn't legally binding, but it is invaluable emotionally. It's your chance to speak directly to your loved ones. You can detail personal explanations for your decisions, funeral preferences, pet care instructions, or maybe where you've securely stored your inventory of digital accounts and passwords. It's the final note that provides comfort.
So we've created the plan, we've funded the trust, we've compiled our documents, we're done, right?
Not quite.
Yeah.
Planning isn't a one-and-done task. It needs maintenance. You should treat the plan like a critical relationship. It needs a formal review every 3 to 5 years. And even more importantly, review it immediately after any major life event: marriage, divorce, a birth, a death, or a big move to a new state. That could change all your tax and probate laws.
And that's where professionals come in. It's not just about paying an attorney to draft the documents.
Yeah.
Financial planners and advisors are crucial for just initiating these tough conversations. They provide an objective voice, they make sure the content reflects your wishes, and they facilitate the creation process, whether that's with an attorney or through some of the newer digital platforms. The goal is just accessibility. The only bad plan is the one that sits on your to-do list forever.
And if we return to that opening thesis, that provocative title, we circle back to the core motivation. This task gets delayed because we avoid talking about our own mortality. But remember, the emotional burden of planning falls on you now. The emotional burden of not planning falls entirely on your loved ones later, during their deepest time of distress. It is truly the ultimate act of care.
So a quick recap of the core mechanisms that avoid probate. Use beneficiary designations on all financial accounts, utilize joint tenancy with rights of survivorship where it makes sense, and establish a funded trust for comprehensive control. And make sure that critical document checklist is complete: the living will, the powers of attorney for finance and healthcare, the last will and testament, and your explicit digital asset provisions.
And to leave you with a final, provocative thought to mull over, if the purpose of estate planning is the selfless act of relieving this enormous burden on your survivors, then the discomfort and procrastination you overcome today is the greatest possible gift of peace you can bestow tomorrow. Which raises an important question. Is the temporary emotional cost of creating the plan truly greater than the permanent emotional cost of not planning for those you leave behind?
Use this deep dive as your framework. Go start those conversations you may have been putting off. That's all for this deep dive.